Welcome, guys, back to the I Love Wrestling podcast. I'm your host, as always, Justin Wright. Today, we are welcomed with a fellow podcaster, Matt, the host of the Throwdown. How are you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm good. I've been looking forward to this. Like I was saying before, before we started recording, it's interesting being on this side of things. And
It's a change of pace and it's fun. Um,
it
I
is.
I like doing these because it's more of a conversation. Um, Sometimes when you wrestle, talk to the guys, the wrestlers, it feels too much like an interview. So like this is a change of pace for me too. I don't have a set questions. It's just kind of see what happens. And I guess the goal of this is to promote your stuff as much as possible. So I'm excited.
Well, I appreciate that. It's interesting that it worked out that we're doing this today because 1 year ago today I did my very first live stream.
Okay. And do you only live stream your videos or like your interviews, or do you record them and then post them later as well?
I do the interviews as live streams because I like the feel of kind of working without a net, so to
Okay.
speak. I like the energy of doing something live. But later on, I do I download and save all of the raw video and raw audio files, and later on, I edit out short excerpts that I post on TikTok and other short media platforms. And then I also edit the audio into an audio podcast episode as well. So.
Okay. What a year ago just sparked the urge to start, live streaming interviews with wrestlers?
Well, I had been toying with the idea for a while. And actually, interestingly enough, when I started out January of last year, I was actually on the music side of things. I'm a hobbyist bass player.
Okay.
And so initially, I started off doing live stream chats with unsigned bands. And I did that, and that was going along pretty well. And then around late spring to early summer, I started toying with the idea of expanding the content into wrestling, which is the other area I'm really passionate about. And so, early July, I started, I did my first wrestling related chat, and interestingly enough, I found that it was easier and simpler to get bookings with wrestlers than it was with the musicians. So I kind of shifted my focus, and I'm pretty much strictly a wrestling channel now. Um, Altogether, I've I did about 34 music related live streams, and right now I've just I'll be hitting 75 wrestling related live streams as of this week. So
Okay.
in less than a year, I've done over 100.
I think I'm about at that 70 mark. I don't know where I just decided I wasn't going to number them no more. I thought like for me numbering them, everybody numbers them. So like, and I got caught up in the like, what number is this? When am I hitting 100? Things like that. So like, I'm somewhere around that 70 mark as well. Um, I started in October, so it's kind of cool. How many do you put out a week? Like, how many interviews do you release a week?
Well, it really kind of depends. This is entirely a side venture for me.
Okay.
I so in order to keep balance with my shoot job and family stuff and everything else, I try not to do more than three a week. But lately I've been kind of breaking that self-imposed rule quite a bit, and I've been doing more like 4 a week. Because if somebody says yes, unless the week is just completely messed up, I'm not going to say no. you
Yeah.
know. So it's but yeah. So I try to do, I try to do 3 a week. And then, I've started doing the panel discussion show on Sunday afternoons, kind of in addition to the live stream chats. So,
Where'd that idea come about from?
well, it was really just an idea that came to me, and my very first guest on the Throwdown was Cowboy James Hunter. You've met him when you
He's a
were
great
on
guy.
the yeah, and he and I have formed and maintained a pretty cool friendship. And I came up with the idea and I bounced it off of him to see what he thought about the idea. And he thought it was great, and he said he would absolutely love to be part of it. So, again, it's just one of these things that just kind of came to me. I mean, it's I don't know that it really has an origin per se. It just, you know,
Just happened.
and something else I've been doing, I've done about 3 of these, is I've also got some pre-recorded shows that I do called Inside the Match.
Okay.
And with that, I've built some friendships with some indie wrestlers, and a lot of them have some of their matches on YouTube. So
Hmm.
what we've done is basically they pick out a match that they are really fond of, and we watch the match together, and they sort of give their memories, their reminiscences, and basically break the match down as it goes.
Okay.
And Like I said, I've done about 3 of those, and those have been a lot of fun. Just getting their insights and some of the funny stories about stuff that went wrong, and
Sounds
so
like a great concept. I like that. It's something like
yeah,
you've seen on a mainstream scale, but to get it on a, on the independent levels, it has to be much different because obviously everybody's seen what's
it
on
is.
TV. So like
Right,
nobody ever talks about what goes wrong at the indie event or how they go about changing it. That's
right,
interesting. That's it. I like that.
right.
Are those on like your channels?
Yeah, those are actually strictly on my YouTube.
Okay.
Um,
I'll have to check those out.
yeah, I've got
Um,
like I said, I've got 3 of them so far, and those, I'm not releasing them on any particular schedule. It's just kind of as they happen.
okay. Like, as far as booking talent, do you stay strictly in your area or do you talk to talent everywhere?
I talk to talent everywhere. I
Okay.
mean, I'm in Metro Atlanta, Georgia,
Okay.
and I've done a lot of these with Georgia-based talent, just because I kind of believe in supporting the local guys.
Yep.
But I've talked with people as far away as Toronto, Canada, California, the Midwest, Utah. So I don't really have, and actually I've got a guy booked who he is originally from Ukraine, but he is currently in Spain. So he's going to be coming up in March, and that's going to be my first international episode. So
That's really
and
cool.
we're kind of having to work out some of the scheduling for that, because of the time
Time difference.
difference. It's going to be
Yeah.
a little challenging, but
I've had the chance to talk to two individuals from Australia, which time-wise was tough, and then
oh yeah,
one young man from the UK. which was also
Oh,
tough.
that's
Both of
cool.
those I had to wake up at like 4 or 6 in the morning to get those
Hmm.
interviews done. But it's worth it. It's fun. I always like the perspective from people not in this country because it's so much different than
Oh, it
everywhere
is.
else.
It is.
If you had a goal or like a mission statement for your podcast, what would that be?
Well, you know, I like focusing my content on the indies because, I mean, to me, being a small part of telling the story of people chasing a dream is just an honor, you know?
Yes.
And being being a part of giving them a platform to kind of tell their stories is just really neat. And I've had some neat experiences. I mean, this didn't have a thing in the world to do with his appearance on my show, but one of my early guests was a actually a Georgia-based wrestler named Sean Legacy, and
Okay.
he is now one of the WWE ID talents.
Yeah.
It was cool seeing that happen for him, and thinking, wow, I interviewed him when, you know, and he's somebody that I think has a lot of potential to hopefully do well in that system.
Have you been able to speak to him since, or was it just we did the interview and that's it?
I've um I've chatted with him on like Instagram DMs, but I mean I haven't spoken with him again since. But the good thing is I've been able to kind of keep in touch with most of my guests. So that's been kind of fun.
Do you find that challenging? Because sometimes I know for myself, like just I talk to so many people a day, trying to keep in touch with some of like the first guests, I notice can get increasingly difficult.
Yeah, I mean I haven't kept in touch with all of them by any means. Because like you said, there's just so many that it's hard to do that. But there have been a few that I've definitely have kept in touch with, and that I actually count among friends. So that's been kind of neat, and it's just been pretty cool. You know Having these friendships with people all over the country, and to some extent now all over the world. So
I want to ask about the WWA 4, just because like that's where I became acquainted with you. I noticed that you would interview some of the same guys from there. And I believe I even reached out to one of the guests that we both had in common to see, if like see about how to get in touch with you to do this right now. So
mhm.
like what has your experience been working with AR Fox's guys, and is that a school that you like continue to enjoy working with?
Oh, absolutely. Those guys all um, represent themselves and the school so well. Fox has a lot to be proud of, and the guys from the four that I've talked to, you know, Fox teaches them obviously how to wrestle and how to do all of that, but a lot of what he imparts is also how to conduct yourself outside of the ring. A lot of etiquette, a lot of you know, staying humble, being the first guy there to help set up the ring and the last guy to leave, helping with teardown, paying your dues, that kind of thing. And yeah, it's one of these. I live, I guess, about an hour from where they are located. But one of these Thursday nights, I'm going to get out for one of their Thursday night shows. I just need to kind of figure out the scheduling on that. But Yeah, and I'm hoping one of these days to manage to get Fox on, and just
That's the
have the
goal.
chance to pick his brain would just be amazing. So
You you mentioned trying to go. Like I live up in the Chicago area, and it's still like a goal of mine to make it down there to just experience one show in that in their arena and get the feel because watching it on video I don't think does it justice. And
no,
like you said, having Fox on would be an honor because I've probably said it to them guys a lot, but I would say Fox is probably the underground like indie king. Like nobody thinks about it. He goes under the radar. But the amount of influence he has on the business today doesn't get talked about. Nowhere near enough.
right, right, right.
Because your favorites on TV, they probably learned something from AR Fox,
Hmm.
especially if you're looking in that AEW locker room.
Oh yeah.
At least 50%, if not more, probably have some influence from him.
I don't know if you had the chance last Wednesday to catch his match with Swerve on Dynamite, but
No,
man,
I was in a
uh,
snowstorm.
well, you know, if you can manage to find it somewhere, it's worth your time to check it out, man. Fox and Swerve put on a show.
I'll definitely have to check that out. That was one I think I remember it getting announced, and I was like, I got to see that. And then, yeah, I got trapped in the snow.
Yeah, it'll happen.
Usually, when I do the podcast, I always start with the question. Today, I went a little off normal pace. Um, but since how this is the I Love Wrestling podcast, Matt, when did you fall in love with wrestling?
Oh gosh. Well, I've been a fan, you know, varying levels of fandom at different points in my life, but I kind of initially fell in love with wrestling when I was around 11, and I was a kid in Florida. And, you know, and just to kind of date myself, you know, I turned 55 back in September.
Okay.
So, I mean, I've been following the business to one degree or another for over 40 years. But early on as a kid in Florida, watching Florida Championship Wrestling, and this was long before, you know, it was, you know, the pre-runner to NXT and all that.
Yeah.
But it was Florida Championship Wrestling with a guy named Gordon Soley doing the commentary. And the first feud I remember was Dusty Rhodes and Kevin Sullivan.
Okay.
And you know, when you're 11 years old, Kevin Sullivan is a scary guy. I mean, you know,
Rest in peace,
just,
Kevin. By the way,
oh, absolutely, yeah. But I mean, at the time, you know, Kevin Sullivan had the whole satanic gimmick going on, and you know,
that was
he had
still
the
he was still with Nancy, right? Woman.
um he hadn't but he hadn't brought woman in at that
Okay.
point. Um this was the early 1980s. This
Okay.
was around probably 81, 82, somewhere around there, and he had this Army of Darkness thing going on.
Okay.
He had a guy named Mark Lewin who was going by the name the Purple Haze, and that was kind of his right hand guy. But yeah, he and Dusty Rhodes had a long and bloody feud in Florida during that time. And
Do you remember your first like live interaction with wrestling?
oh gosh, my first live show actually was quite a bit afterward. Actually, I was
Okay.
in college.
Okay.
And I went with some of my dorm mates. Actually, WCW did a Halloween Havoc pay-per-view in Chattanooga, which was the closest city to where I went to college. And so my buddies and I went down, and we went to the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga Arena for Halloween Havoc. And this would have been probably around 89 to maybe 1990, somewhere around there. And we had a good time.
Do you remember anything about the card?
Um, I remember the Great Muta was on the card.
Okay. Was he with
And
Sting or was that before Sting?
no, Sting was there.
Okay.
And uh, they they didn't face each other. I remember, granted, this is 35 years ago now, but
Yeah.
Abdullah the Butcher was also on the card, and I
Okay.
remember that they, with it being Halloween Havoc, they did this little gimmick at the end where they had Abdullah the Butcher in an electric chair, and they electrocuted
Oh,
him.
that's so yeah, that's cool you got to be there for that. Because I
Yeah,
remember I've watched it back, and like
yeah.
that's one of those things. Like as a kid, like my dad would watch it, and then I'd see it, and I'd be like, "Dad, they killed him. Like they just they just put him in the chair and killed him." And he's like,
Yeah.
"No, he's fine. He's on the next show."
Yeah.
And what it was even funnier because like I remember like probably a couple I want to say it was a couple months after. I believe I saw Abdullah at an indie show in West Virginia.
Mhm.
So I was like I just saw this guy get murdered
Yeah.
25 years ago or no 15 years ago and he's here. Just I don't
Yeah.
think he wrestled. He's probably way past his wrestling
Oh yeah.
expiration date, but he was there. And I was just like that's crazy. I just watched this guy to die on TV and now he's here.
Yeah. Yeah,
So like go ahead.
like any fictional type of endeavor, though, death is not necessarily permanent.
No, no, never. Especially not in wrestling. Like you'll
Yeah.
die and then you'll go to the next program and then you'll come back 6 months later
Yep.
back on the other program. uh,
Absolutely.
Earlier you mentioned like there's ups and downs of fandom. Like, what would you say was the time where you kind of fell away from it, and then what would you say drew you back?
Well, I fell away from it probably late 90s to early 2000s. Um, a lot of it was, at that point in time, I was actually working as a firefighter paramedic,
Okay.
and so I was working all the time, and my schedule was just weird. And during that time span, I also met and ended up marrying my wife. And so I just had a lot going on in my life. And then, you know, I've really, I've really gotten back into it on a serious level, really probably the last 8 or 9 years. Probably about 2015 was when I really kind of picked back up in fandom.
It's
And
it's
um,
crazy because that's when most people probably consider the lowest point in WWE, especially the last couple decades. It's crazy that you got drawn in that period.
well, I wasn't necessarily watching a lot of what was going on at the time. I was
Okay.
sort of watching a lot of the older stuff that I'd missed, and
Okay, that makes sense.
and then kind of kind of catching up to where things were, and kind of going from there. But man, the business as a whole is just on fire right now.
Yes, it's probably, I know I am about to be 25 years old and probably the hottest it's been the entire time I've watched it. Like, and I was born at the end of the Attitude Era, and like I don't remember much of the late Attitude Era going into the Ruthless Aggression Era. Like I don't, but like even John Cena at his peak, what we're doing
Hmm.
now feels bigger than John Cena at his peak.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I mean, having followed it for 40 years, and being um, being old enough to be cognizant, during the whole Monday Night Wars and the Attitude Era, and seeing ECW come and go, and all of that. I mean, I've got to say, right now is probably the most exciting time that I can remember. And a lot of it really, I credit a lot of the growth and renaissance of the business right now actually to the rise of the indies.
Yes.
I think a lot of what we are seeing on the big stages right now is coming from the energy and the innovation that was done on the independent circuit.
When did you like become acclimated with what we call the modern day like indie scene? Like when did you find that and start paying attention to that?
Well, I I was aware of it, but I really took more of a deep dive into it around the time I was kind of getting back into things, you know, probably 2016, 2017. I kind of, I'd heard of New Japan and a lot of the stuff going on over there, but I'd never really explored it before. So, I started, looking at what was going on over there. And, I found out that a lot of the guys that were over there either had come from the Indies or were still doing indie stuff. So, that was kind of when I started to dive into it. And really, I've gotten more deeply into the indies since starting to do these live streams. Um, I've recently gotten acquainted with, for instance, Rocky Mountain Pro out in Denver, and they have a weekly show on YouTube that is quite good. I really can't recommend Rocky Mountain Pro enough. And they've got D'Lo Brown as their head trainer, and Vince Russo is actually one of their the folks that's tied up with their creative out there.
Hmm, okay.
And we all know about Vince Russo,
He's an
so
interesting character.
he is for sure.
I'll have to check them out. I just wrote down the name. I haven't ever heard of them before, so I'll have to go check them out. Maybe see if I can get some of their guys on too.
Yeah, I've had a few of their folks. I just had a tag team called JK Pop, and through them, I've actually gotten several more of their talent scheduled. And actually, the guy that turned me on initially to Rocky Mountain Pro was Marty Casaus, Marty the Moth from
Ooh,
Lucha Underground.
yeah.
I had him on a while back, and he does a lot with Rocky Mountain Pro because he's based in Utah, but it's not a bad trip out to Denver from where he is. So yeah, he's on Rocky Mountain Pro pretty regularly. So
You know, we are at the cusp of the beginning of the year. Like we just got into 2025. As far as your podcast goes, your platform goes, what would you say your goal for this year would be?
well, my goal for this year is basically just continued growth. I don't necessarily have a metric in mind necessarily. I just want to see continued growth. I'm focusing on trying to grow the YouTube side of things.
Okay.
Um, to get to the 1,000 subscribers and all that good stuff,
It's a
Um,
grind.
it is, for some reason, I'm getting really good traction on Instagram, on TikTok, and some of the other platforms, but I'm really struggling to get traction on YouTube, and I'm not really sure why exactly. But
It's something I don't want to say it's luck because it's not, but like sometimes I feel like it's a lot of luck because I've done it for 3 years now. This is my second
hmm
channel. My first channel, it took me 2.5 years to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I got lucky on my second one. I just hit 1,000 subscribers actually this morning.
oh, that's
But
great.
it's probably due to Marty Skrull. He gave me a blessing and got came on. It's that I have to give credit where credit's due. It has to do with that. Um, so a lot of it I want to say is luck and just finding the right thing that people want to see.
Right.
And I've done a lot of studying too. Like that's probably what I do most of my time is either watching the guys I'm gonna have, guys or girls I'm gonna have on the show, trying to get acclimated with them, or watching all these tips and tricks and hacks for trying to develop social media because it's an articulate game that takes time to figure out.
It is. It is. Yeah, it's and but I mean, really for me though, it's mostly just a labor of love. I absolutely love this stuff, and it's I mean, don't get me wrong. I would love to get to the point where the channel is at the very least paying for itself.
Yeah,
But
that's my
you
goal
know,
at least.
yeah, but yeah, I mean, mostly, it's just nice because it's so uh it's it's a great creative release. It's so totally different than my shoot job. I'm basically I'm in the healthcare industry. I'm a data scientist, so I basically crunch large data sets.
So
And
this is a big change of pace.
oh yeah, yeah, it is completely different from what I do for my day job. And
Do you
having that outlet is just really cool.
do you ever feel a sort of satisfaction from getting to just sit down and have a conversation um with these guys who most of the time get perceived as larger than life, but we get to sit down and have a human interaction with them?
Oh, absolutely. And that's the vibe that I go for, is that it's more a conversation than an interview. You know, I like to, I'll have a basic framework, I'll have some basic questions, but I always find that where the magic really happens is when you let the conversation go where it will,
Yes.
and don't necessarily stick to an established framework. And and what's been fun for me are actually the times when I've had the chance to interview tag teams, because having more than one guest on at a time, they'll sit there and play off of each other. They'll riff off of each other, and those sessions usually go longer than normal, which is great. But oftentimes in situations like that, you just kind of wind them up and let them go, and you just kind of sit back and watch what happens. I mean,
I
so
I really enjoy that aspect of just getting. I've never had a tag team one. It's something this week Wednesday I'll have my first opportunity. Well, it's not a tag team. It's a manager wrestler duo, which is going to be fun. But like getting the guy or the girl riled up to where they go off on a tangent, I think is fun because I just sit there and listen and soak it in because
oh yeah.
they're just giving you unlimited information, and sometimes it's it amazes you how much of them they show when they do it because like I've even had guys come on full character and then you ask them something and you can tell that spark hits and then they come out and it's like, okay, that's why I did this. That's that
Yeah.
one little pit, like that one little piece is why I wanted the interview in the first place.
Oh yeah. And moments like that are cool because you can sit back and be like, that's like you said, that's why I'm doing this, because there's times, I mean, doing these and preparing for them and doing post production, it can be a grind. It.
Yes,
I mean,
it's the toughest
and
part.
yeah, and there's moments, there's moments when I sit back and I'm like, why am I doing this? But then
Yep,
there's moments when magic happens and you're like, that's why. So,
it's crazy because I've like you've said, I've made friends with people now, or I've had moments where I've got to, for me, like talk to people that I watched maybe in my teenage years or whenever I was even younger. And it's like, okay, I saw these people then. They were, like I said, larger than life. And now I get to sit down and have a normal adult conversation. And the overwhelming joy it brings is out of this world. Or I've noticed, and I'll give a shout out to like Neji Ichiban and Dante
mhm,
Darko.
yeah.
Them two guys are just so passionate and so knowledgeable of this business. And when you get
Oh
guys
yeah.
like that on here that just want to share about their passion, their dreams, their characters, it makes this so much fun. Like
Oh,
it's unbelievable.
Uh, Neji and Dante are just awesome. I mean, I had such a good time with both of those gentlemen, and actually coming up on the 8th, there's an indie show actually about 20 minutes from here that Dante is actually wrestling on, and I'm going to try to get out to that show and actually have a chance to say hello to him in person. So
Have you got to meet any of your interviewees in person yet?
I have.
Okay.
I've actually, right after, well, within a couple of weeks after I did my first live stream with Cowboy James Hunter, my
Okay.
son and I took a road trip out to Augusta, where he's based, and it's about 2 hours from Atlanta. And we took a road trip out there and actually caught a PWE show,
Okay.
and he man, Cowboy treated us right. He got us ringside and everything else,
That's
and
badass.
that was my son's first live show, live
Okay.
wrestling show, and just being that close to everything, he's not a fan, but on the way home he was like, "Dad, I had a better time than I thought I was going to," So
Being live changes how people see it too. I've noticed because like I have siblings who could care less, but then
mhm.
you take them to a live show, and by the end of it, they want to meet all the wrestlers, they want autographs, and like I've been fortunate. There's a company out here, CSW, Chicago Star Wrestling. I've got to interview probably a good handful of their talent, and so like I go and I'm like afterwards, it's one of those places where like they'll sit and talk to you for an hour and a half, 2 hours afterwards, which is cool because I didn't get that when I was a kid. So like now I doing this, I get the opportunity to take my little siblings and like say, okay, who in the card do you want to go talk to? And then
Oh, that's cool.
I can give them that opportunity to go talk to them because I've probably already talked to them.
Yeah,
Or I know somebody that can get me to let them talk to them, which is just so fun.
yeah. Oh yeah.
And you get like I think the last show was I got my little brother's got like a bunch of pictures with everybody. There was one guy, he had a double shot, so he had to be at two different shows that we
Hmm.
didn't get a picture with, and that was it. And they afterwards they were like, I'll never these are things I'll never forget. And I was like, that's the
Oh
point.
yeah,
Like that's why we go to wrestling events, is so we'll never forget them.
absolutely. You know, one of my fondest wrestling memories was actually I was actually in the Georgia Dome back in '98 when Goldberg went over Hogan. And let me tell you, especially with Bill Goldberg being from Georgia, that place came unglued. I mean, when he went over Hogan, I mean, the pop on television didn't do it justice, man. That place was just it was unreal,
That's
actually
crazy.
being there. Um, and another thing that I experienced, in front of a live crowd was early on, before he had really reached, his peak of superstardom. Um, I was at a live WWE show, and The Rock was on the card. And when his music hit, you could feel the energy in the place, and you were like, you were just watching greatness. This guy literally had the venue in the palm of his hand, but he wasn't even at the peak of his powers,
That's
but
crazy.
but I mean, you can just feel when somebody has it. And even before he was at the level he ended up being at, you could tell he had it.
I think like my latest like crazy reaction for like that, I got to go to the SmackDown where Jacob Fatu debuted. And as
Oh
soon
wow.
as he hit, and mind you, I always give credit to the Allstate Arena because of how the venue is. Like
Hmm.
if you've ever watched any interviews from like some of the older guys and they'll talk about the Allstate Arena, it's like got the wood ceiling, so everybody, all the sound echoes. And I don't
Right.
think for me, I've heard a bigger pop. And like CM Punk was on that show that night, and it's Chicago crowd, and they go crazy for CM Punk. But once we saw Jacob and he did the splash through the table, the building literally like erupted, and it was like one of the craziest things I've seen in my time as being a fan.
Well, just this is probably going to be an unpopular opinion, but I didn't, overall, I really didn't care much for this Saturday night's main event. Um, the show
No,
just didn't do a whole lot for me, but seeing them finally really pull the trigger on Jacob Fatu, man,
probably the only part that was worth it.
I mean, he is a made man at this point. I mean, that was an amazing sequence. I mean, and hearing the crowd calling for him to do it again, and then Fatu, Fatu, Fatu. Um,
Did you see that there was an English news outlet that put it on their front cover saying that
no,
like
I
about
didn't.
yeah, apparently they put like criminal squashes top WWE star in some sort of scandal, and then they go in and explain how like Jacob Fatu massacres Braun Strowman, and the savage San Antonio crowd wanted more. It was
Yeah.
great.
And it wasn't lost on me that they actually did blood on network television too.
No,
I
it was
mean,
cool. It
that
was a nice change
that
of
was
pace.
special. That was
Yes.
special. Um, but yeah, the rest of the show didn't do much for me.
I know me, myself, you, and Cowboy. We reviewed Saturday Night's Main Event, and I think for the most part we were completely wrong on how it went. Like,
Yeah,
they really, uh, it was underwhelming because you'd think at one of these events, especially being on prime time, they'd want big things to happen, and like the Fatu spot was probably a big thing, but
yeah.
I
But
feel like they're going to wait too long on things like Jey Uso or
but besides the Fatu spot, to me the show felt very safe. Like
too safe.
yeah. They, they if they're going to keep doing these, they need to make them must-see TV.
Almost like a pay-per-view.
And
Like
yeah,
you build them up like a pay-per-view, that you got to treat them like a pay-per-view. Like, and at this point, they seem like we have our A show pay-per-views, like the big four, and then we have our B show pay-per-views. Saturday Night's main events right now feel like C-level pay-per-views,
yeah. I
like kind of
mean,
like a Saudi Arabia show. Like it's just
oh
there to
yeah,
happen.
it was a glorified house show.
Yes, like
I mean,
even down to like the Shawn Michaels segment with the contract signing, nothing big happened. Nobody went through the table. Shawn Michaels got his super kick. That was about it. It was just it
yeah,
felt like it was there to please the San Antonio audience, and that was it.
yeah, yep.
Um,
So, but at least we've got Rumble coming up. I
I'm
mean,
excited. I'm really excited because
I am
this is the
too.
first Rumble in a long time. I feel like I have no clue what's going to happen. I don't
Yeah.
know who's going to win. It's interesting.
There's really about six people that I could make a serious case for winning the Rumble. And yeah, like you said, it's been um I can't remember the last time that I really
Maybe
don't have a
Maybe
real
when Drew
inkling.
won, that could have been like the last one. Whenever it could have been a toss up
Yeah,
between anybody, or 2020, like the pandemic era Rumble. That was one where it was a who knows. But ever since then, each year it's been we pretty much know going into it who's walking out your Rumble winner.
right, right.
Who, if
Uh,
you had to pick one of those six, who do you think's
oh
gonna walk out?
gosh. Um, I'm gonna say Punk.
I like you said that because I've been a Punk guy
Well, you're from
since.
Chicago, so I
Well,
mean,
no, I'm from West Virginia. I'm from West
oh, well,
Virginia, so like I've been a Punk guy since like ECW, like when he was in
gotcha.
ECW.
Yeah,
Um, Now being growing up in the Chicago area has fueled that.
yeah.
I think it's his time. I thought he was going to win it last year. I thought he was going to win it, and Cody was going to go another route to Mania, which I guess we're glad that didn't happen. But like, I think it's Punk's year. I think he's somebody that's getting up there in age. So like, if they're going to pull the trigger on Punk, it's probably sooner rather than later.
Well, I don't know if you've seen my um the post I made on Instagram earlier today,
I
but
might have.
I've come up with a way at this match between Cody and Kevin at the Rumble to
Hmm.
do a double turn.
Okay.
Um, to basically coming out of the show with Kevin as the face and Cody as the heel.
Okay.
Um, and because I'm getting a little tired of babyface Cody.
I think heel Cody is where it's at. I think Ring
Yeah,
of Honor heel Cody is probably
yeah,
the best iteration of Cody Rhodes I've ever seen in my life.
yeah.
If anybody hasn't watched 2017 Cody Rhodes, they're missing out.
Absolutely. But I think what they could do is have Kevin come out and reveal something that reveals something that Cody has done or said that nobody is aware of, that basically proves all along that Kevin truly has been right in all of this. And I'm thinking it could have something to do with whatever The Rock handed to Cody a while
Okay.
back.
Yeah.
And then that could explain why The Rock was suddenly so cordial to Cody at the Netflix premiere.
Okay.
Um, and what I've got in mind is they do something like that, Cody snaps and basically just starts laying waste to Kevin. Um, and Randy Orton comes out to basically try to talk Cody down, talk sense to him. There's a ref bump. The ref goes down. Um, Randy Orton comes into the ring to basically pull Cody off of Kevin. Because yeah, he's got some beef with Kevin, but he doesn't like what's going on. Cody shoves Randy. Randy RKO's Cody. Kevin goes up the ladder and gets the belt, and you end up basically with a more or less back to being face Kevin, a heel Cody, and a program, a heel Cody and a face Randy Orton at Mania.
I like it because I think when you think about the Cody Orton dynamic, a lot of us probably just assumed that Orton would turn on Cody because Orton turns on everybody if history says anything. But
Right.
that would be so much more intriguing storyline
Yeah.
wise. And I've said it a million times. Kevin Owens is way overdue for a world title run. It's been
Hmm.
10, almost what, not 10 years, 9 years since his last world
Yeah.
title run. It's about time for another one.
And think about this, if Owens comes out of the Rumble with the belt, then potentially at Mania you could have Owens and Punk.
That'd be good. That'd be real good. Because a lot of people consider like Owens, like when Punk left, Owens kind of filled that hole a little bit. It
Hmm.
was, I mean, it was a multitude of people, but if anybody was similar to Punk or Austin, it was Kevin Owens. So like that that would be a storyline going into Mania. I don't think nobody saw coming, and which would
Yep.
really, I've I've always wanted to see like Punk versus Owens, or that. I like that. I like where your brain's at.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And
uh,
something else that I would love to see near term is a program with Braun Breaker and Jacob Fatu.
yes. No, I saw them almost on. I
Yeah,
think it was on
they
Raw.
had,
They
they had
were
a
face
stare
to
down,
face, and I was
and
like,
it's
"That's
like,
money. That's money right
yeah,
there." I
yep,
could see, even if it's not soon, I could see them main eventing a big show. Jacob
oh
Fatu,
yeah,
Braun Breaker, WWE World
D
Heavyweight Championship.
down the
Yes,
road, yeah,
that's money.
yeah,
That's marquee.
yep, yep,
Um, Before I let you go, Matt, I'm gonna ask you one more question, and that
okay.
is, who would you consider your personal Mount Rushmore?
Flair, Omega, um, probably Terry Funk, and just in terms of just his mind, Bray Wyatt.
Okay, I like that. It's I like pulling from different aspects. I like it. Um, just in closing, Matt, if you have any advice that you'd like to give any of our fellow podcasters or just anything about life, would you like to throw some advice out there?
Well, um, it's funny. Um, I've gotten into all of this podcasting and such, later in life. But you're never too old, you're never too young. Um, Enjoy the grind, enjoy the process, and just if you're passionate about what you're doing, stay the course. Don't worry so much about the metrics as about what you're doing, whether it resonates. Really, when it comes down to it, does it resonate with you? Because if it resonates with you, odds are, it's going to resonate with somebody else.
Yes, sir.
So,
Thank you so much, Matt. This was a great time. Guys,
oh,
if
thank
you
you.
haven't checked out the Throwdown with Matt, make sure to go check him out. Um, would you like to let them know where they can find you, Matt?
Well, I'm on most of the social media platforms. I'm on Instagram. Actually, my Instagram is actually Matt Strings and Things.
Okay,
Um, but pretty much all of my other social media, that's TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, is all the Throwdown with Matt.
okay,
Um, and I mean, really, you could probably search on the Throwdown with Matt, even on Instagram, and you'd probably find me.
okay.
but um, but I mean, yeah, and uh, I do like I said, 2 to 3 live streams a week, and then the panel discussion show on Sunday afternoons, and I'm actually booked up through the month of March now. Um, so I've done about 75 of these, and I've got probably another 20 to 25 scheduled. So,
So you're going
uh,
to be busy over the next couple months.
oh yeah, yep.
Okay,
And like I said, that's the plan. Just keep grinding, and good things will happen.
sounds good. Matt, thank you once again. It was a blessing to have you on here. Great conversation, and I believe we'll continue to have more great conversations either on my show or your show or on the roundtable.
Absolutely. I actually need I'll reach out to you in the coming days about trying to get you on as a guest on the Throwdown, so that we can just nerd out about this stuff some more.
Sounds good, Matt. Thank you so much. And I'll leave this at see you later.
Yep. Have a good one.